Guardians, welcome to Community Creations, a new series where I'll be looking through community builds and spotlighting a few that need their time in the limelight. These builds could be focused on dealing the most boss damage, keeping you and your team alive, or even just a goofy off-meta build that brings that spark of joy. Today, I have two builds that actually shocked me on how strong and off-meta they were. Both were submitted in my Discord in the build submissions channel. So if you want a chance at being featured in a video, link to my Discord in the description. Remember to leave a like if you find this video helpful, and if you like seeing build videos and other Destiny 2 helpful content, consider hitting that subscribe button. With that being said, let's jump right on into it. The first build up on our list is for you Warlock lovers out there. We have the Bug Zapper build from NattyDubs. This build is all about using the new exotic sword, Ergo Sum, to wipe out mass amounts of enemies. And before I hear, show me in a GM in the comment section, this build is made for ad-dense environments like Onslaught or those new Battleground playlists. I've never seen a build that made it so easy to just mass delete enemies. While I did some slight changes to the build, I kept its overall identity the same. With Ergo Sum, we can get the exotic perk Arc Conductor, and this will do two things for you. One, you'll get 50% arc damage resistance whenever it's active, and two, enemies close to you will take chain lightning damage. The great thing is this damage is treated as weapon damage, meaning we can become radiant, go transcendent, and even use weapon surges to buff its damage. To activate Arc Conductor, you have to use your heavy attack with your sword, and per NattyDubs, this works best on the caster frame, so you can deal damage with Arc Conductor and activate it from range. Though I used it on an aggressive frame, which to me is the worst frame, and this build was still very strong. So just make sure that you get the Arc Conductor perk. And because we're using an arc weapon as our main weapon, we bring Mantle of Battle Harmony. Luckily, I have an exotic class item with Spirit of Inmost Light and Harmony to get the most benefit out of this build. Now, when we kill with our sword, we rapidly get back our Arc Super, which is pretty strong in those ad-dense environments. But I will touch back on another option in a second. So with this build, you have one goal in mind: get Transcendent fast and stay Transcendent for a long time. With Ergo Sum, you get extra Transcendent energy per kill, and since this is an arc sword, we get a ton of light energy, so we bring Facet of Honor. Now we get extra Transcendent energy for elemental pickups, which pairs perfectly with two artifact perks. First, we bring Elemental Siphon, where kills with a super matching weapon will create an elemental pickup. In our case, that's Ionic Traces. We then bring Threaded Blast and a strand weapon so that we can use Tangles to not only get a ton of darkness Transcendent energy, but also create a huge explosion. We create Tangles by using our normal powered melee, so be sure to do that every so often. Since this build leads to a ton of light Transcendent energy and only some darkness, we then bring the aspect Bleak Watcher to create a stasis turret that will feed our darkness meter. Now we gain a ton of Transcendent energy for both light and dark and can easily go Transcendent constantly. The best part about it is that while you're Transcendent, you deal more damage, have a super powerful weakening grenade, and you take less damage. But Ergo Sum has two huge advantages for going Transcendent. First, you gain 44% increased damage and 20% to your Arc Conductor damage. And second, you extend the duration just by getting kills. So now that you can get Transcendent fast and stay in it for longer, we have one last factor to address: ammo. With this season, we have an artifact perk called Blade Stamina, where rapidly killing 3 enemies will refund 3 ammo. And with Arc Conductor, you get rapid kills like crazy. If you've gotten the exotic catalyst, you'll also get 3 ammo just for dealing prismatic grenade damage. And this leads to you basically having infinite ammo for your sword, meaning you can continuously use your heavy attack to keep that Arc Conductor active, slaying everything in sight. So now you know the basis of the build, revolving around Ergo Sum, but we take aspects like Feed the Void and Facet of Protection to stay healthy and throw a ton of grenades. But I did mention that there's another option for the super. You could alternatively run Song of Flame or Nova Bomb if you wanted to. In that case, I'd swap out the exotic for Getaway Artist and the grenade for Storm Grenade, so that this is basically a souped up version of the dynamic duo build I put out a few weeks ago. Or if you're lucky enough to have one, the exotic class item with Spirits of Inmost Light and Star Eater is a really good option for Nova Bomb to deal a ton of burst damage in boss phases. So the gameplay loop goes like this: convert your grenade to a stasis turret to start working up that darkness meter, pull out your sword and use a heavy heavy attack every 6 seconds to keep that Arc Conductor active. As soon as you get Transcendent, pop it and continuously spam those grenades and heavy attacks. The build sounds a bit complicated since there's so many buffs being used effectively in the background, but at the end of the day, all you have to do with the build is use your sword heavy attack, run around throwing your grenades, and pop your super or transcendent whenever you get it. And for stats, I like to shoot for 100 in resilience and discipline. The main goal is to use your sword and throw grenades, so anything else is just a bonus. For weapons, obviously you want an Arc Conductor Ergo Sum, preferably one with the caster frame. And for our other weapons, I do like to take a strand primary to shoot those tangles, but you could also take a special weapon like a sniper to deal more boss DPS from range. Then I bring whatever boss DPS heavy weapon you want. I like taking the Cataphract GL3 to deal some good burst damage, but it's purely up to you. And for the artifact, we already mentioned 3 that I like: Threaded Blast, Elemental Siphon, and Blade Stamina. But I also like to bring Radiant Orbs to gain 25% weapon damage on orb pickup, Galvanic Armor to consistently gain 30% damage resistance just by killing with your sword. And in the final column, it depends on your other weapons or your build changes. For the base build, I like to take Shield Crush for more grenade energy and recharge rate, and then I pair that with Transference, mainly to get back 50% of our Transcendent energy by getting weapon kills while you're Transcendent, which is what you want to do with your Arc Sword anyway. But if you're running Nova Bomb, be sure to swap out Shield Crush for Expanding Abyss to deal even more damage with your super. And if you're running a Sniper for DPS, then you can swap out Shield Crush for Sniper's Meditation. Huge shout out to NattyDubs for submitting this build. It's honestly been so much fun to use, and it's insanely powerful in content with a ton of enemies to take out. And the second build we're looking at is the Mass Death Glaive build from DestinyVerse. This is a hunter build that shakes up the meta by using glaives paired with Triton Vice. With this exotic, you get 100% increased glaive melee damage, and glaive melee kills will load ammo into the mag and can overflow up to 2 times the normal mag size. This also gives an explosion on glaive projectile kills, but that's not relevant because we're taking the infamous Winterbite. With Winterbite, you can shoot a slow orb that will freeze any enemies in its path, and the freezing doesn't technically kill the enemy, so we won't be getting that extra explosion. But what we do get is a glaive melee that, when you have at least 1 round loaded, will deal 50% more damage and apply 40 stacks of slow. So every 3rd hit, you'll freeze that target and add in extra shatter damage, which is why this build uses Facet of Ruin to deal more damage and size for shattering targets and increases the size of ignitions. And that pairs perfectly with our Duskfield Grenade and Gunpowder Gamble. The really fun part is, because we cause so many elemental debuffs to enemies, we then take Stylus Executioner, which can do 2 things for us. The first part of it is something a lot of people know it for, which is killing a debuff target will now make you invisible. But the other secret part of this is that while you're invisible, you can use a glaive melee to weaken a target. Normally, you can just use a melee to weaken and deal more damage, but with glaives, you just get that weaken effect. And this can be really helpful to deal more damage on tougher targets like bosses or champions. And speaking of champions, because we're using Winterbite's melee, you'll slow and freeze targets, meaning that you'll always be able to stun, overload, and unstoppable champions. Now that we've amped up our damage to pretty high levels, we need to address the other side of things: survivability. Going invisible constantly is already very strong, so that you can start your health regen. But with this build, we bring a few more perks to make it even easier to stay alive while meleeing. First, we take Facet of Protection to have 15% damage resistance while surrounded. Second, we take Facet of Purpose paired with the Strand Super to gain 45% damage resistance when you pick up an orb. And third, if you want even more survivability, you can swap out the Threaded Spike melee for Combination Blow and Galvanic Armor to consistently have 30% damage resistance. And one extra tip, I think people forget just how strong the Glaive Shield is. It will block 97.5% of incoming damage. This is huge for staying alive if you get caught in a sticky situation. But this also means you can swap to the Golden Gun Super, which will give you restoration on orb pickup. That means that you'll block so much damage that you'll just be healing over that incoming damage while using your Glaive Shield. And the gameplay loop is honestly stupid easy. Use the Glaive melee. You can swap to your weapons from time to time to create orbs or to take out targets at a distance, or even just to use your normal melee and dodge. But honestly, the Glaive melee costs nothing to use and is your strongest option. You'll continuously be going invisible and gaining stacks for your Gunpowder Gamble with how much you're slowing and freezing targets. And when you need a bit of extra damage or protection, pop your Transcendence for more weapon damage, damage reduction, and a super strong grenade. For stats, I like to shoot for 100 in resilience and discipline. discipline. Then I go for as much recovery as possible to help heal you quicker while you're invisible. Winterbite is the only weapon that you truly need. Other weapons like disorienting grenade launchers will help close the gap, or snipers can help you deal damage on faraway bosses, and both those options can help supplement this build. When it comes to the artifact, we have a couple that we want to bring. First up, Radiant Orbs to give you 25% weapon damage on orb pickup. You also want Solar Fulmination to increase the damage from those ignitions. We then take Shield Crush, which gives you more grenade and melee energy by consistently staying radiant and having woven mail. And if you're bringing a sniper, make sure to bring those sniper perks as well. Big shout out to DestinyVerse for offering up a build that changes up the meta and still feels pretty strong. While this build takes some skill to master and use in high level content, it offers a change of pace from the typical meta for easy and semi-hard content. And with that, we have the first episode of Community Creations, 2 builds that shake up the meta and are actually pretty fun to use. Let me know in the comment section if you want to see more videos like this, and if you want a chance to be featured in one of my videos, there's a link to my Discord in the description where you can post a build of your own. If you found this video helpful or just enjoyed seeing a new perspective, feel free to like the video and comment down below which of these community builds you like best. Keep an eye out for future videos as we continue to explore the ever-evolving world of Destiny 2. Until then, may the threads of fate be ever in your favor. This is Lucky Mech signing off. See you on the next adventure, Guardians.